Riley. I am a PR major here at Texas State. I will be graduating in spring of 2022. I'm also a part of this year's Mass Comm Week team, and I'll be moderating today's session with Miss Melissa Diorio. We're super excited to have her here today. She is the Field Marketing Manager at Exxon Mobil. I'm going to be asking her a few questions throughout today's session. And yeah, so Miss Melissa, if you would like to give a little brief introduction on yourself, that'd be awesome. And then I'll go ahead and get started with the questions after that.
Okay, great. Like you said, my name is Melissa Diorio. Sorry, I'm seeing a little bit of glare here. Let me just fix that really quick. I didn't see myself for a minute there. Did I get it? Okay, I think that's a little better. Well, no, not really, but we'll make do. Sorry about that. Okay, so like you said, I'm Melissa Diorio. I work in Exxon Mobil in our fuels and lubricants department, which is part of the downstream organization with Exxon Mobil. I am a marketing major. I have a marketing and a management degree from Texas Tech, so close neighbor of you guys. I graduated in 2009 with that dual degree, and I currently am home-based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, specifically in Roanoke, Texas, for anybody that might be familiar with that area of the mid-cities.
Awesome, super cool. Could you explain a little bit more in depth of what the FMM does and what you do every single day?
Absolutely. So I am a field marketing manager. So in my department of field marketing, I am kind of a liaison between our sales and marketing functions within my fuels and lubricants organization. So we have, I guess I should start by elaborating a little bit on what fuels and lubricants is. When everybody thinks about ExxonMobil, you might think of the gas stations, which is a very common understanding for those that live in America and have their own vehicles that require gas. That's kind of the main customer facing offer that we have. That's only a small fraction of what ExxonMobil does. A lot of the people that might have more of a financial interest or a stock market interest are looking at the energy side of the company, which is has a lot to do with refineries and other energy products, which honestly, I couldn't even speak to most of that because it does fall in the upstream. So my particular part of the business is with motor oils. So when you think about changing the oil in your car, Mobil One is our primary product that we market in both retail for people that change their own oil and in quick lubes for people that want to get that service done for them. I think that's what most people listening could relate to as a consumer. Again, in the US, we're just a privileged country. So I think most people have their own car or come from a family that has a car. And right now they all require oil services. On a bigger scale, I more work in our B2B sales of those types of products, which would be to like 18-wheeler type fleet companies. And then on even a larger scale would be to industrial businesses. So like paper plants and refineries. ExxonMobil refineries themselves are actually customers that I market to. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds on those types of specifics to my organization, but I do think it's an important part because so many people think of the other, I think 79,000 jobs at ExxonMobil that have nothing to do with mine. And I do think my job is pretty relatable to other consumer goods. I might talk about that a little bit more as far as sometimes it doesn't really matter what product you're marketing. It could be lipstick or it could be motor oil, but a lot of the principles that you apply are very much the same. So I guess that's a little more background on kind of the department that I work in. As far as field marketing, which I mentioned being kind of a liaison between sales and marketing, we have a team of headquarters marketing people that are based on our large campus in the Woodlands, north of Houston. And they're there to kind of develop marketing strategies for the whole, well, I say the country, but it's also for Canada. So we call it the North America business unit. They're up there creating, or they're down there, I guess, since I'm in Dallas, creating these nationwide strategies. And then we have salespeople all throughout the country in every major city that's meant to execute those marketing strategies. And we also have distributors that we go to market with that as well to make sure that our product can reach customers all across the world. So my job is kind of in between those two functions. We've got these guys in the office that they kind of sit in a silo and they do the research and the analysis and they think of these ideas and come up with them. And then we've got sales guys that are executing them. And my job is to kind of train our salespeople on what the offer is, get that message across to them on what they're supposed to be doing, and kind of tell them enough about why so they're invested, but not too much that they're bored. Motivate them, incentivize them, kind of draw that connection between here's the strategy and here's the execution. Likewise, I'm always listening to what's going on in the field and feeding that information back up to my folks that do the strategies to kind of say, hey, you've missed the boat here, or you thought this would work, but it doesn't, or it may have worked a year ago, but now it's COVID and it doesn't work anymore. Like we need to redo this. So, kind of two-way traffic of the communications between the two functions to really try to find what the right touch is. And I cover specifically Texas and Oklahoma. That's kind of the market that I touch, which is why I'm home based here in Dallas because I travel, or I was, I guess, before COVID, traveling to those cities to meet with the folks and the teams that we have there. So, another kind of opportunity that I have to get a little bit creative is sometimes when a strategy is created at the headquarters level for the whole country, it may not have that Texas flair or whatever you want to call it that we like to have here. So, I can put some little tweaks on marketing activities and campaigns to make them a little bit more specific to our geography.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Yeah, I definitely like my brain when I think Exxon goes straight to like gas stations. So it's really interesting to hear how many different, areas there are within that field. Um, okay, so our next question is this something that you've always wanted to do, or did it kind of grow with you over time? How did you kind of get into it?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I haven't always wanted to be a lubricants marketing person. That's not what I would have put on my kindergarten paperwork. I think I did the usual, like one year I wanted to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, and one year I wanted to be a veterinarian, and all of those seem to fall through for me. So I picked marketing when I declared my major in college because I kind of wanted the stability of the business world. I'm a very artistic and creative person, but sometimes when I think of that and some of the cliches that come with it, I think more freelance type work, and I'm just not a risk taker. So I wanted to be under a corporate umbrella like this. Like I don't mind working for the man or working for the woman. It's 2020, so whoever that is, like I wanted the stability and structure that comes with being part of a in the business world. But I thought marketing has kind of the most creative outlet in that world compared to some of the, like the finance and accounting and some of those other types of business degrees. I thought this would be the best compromise for me. So I landed there, but I kind of said that it doesn't really matter what you're marketing, all the principles kind of apply. Although I definitely pictured myself in more of a field or in an industry that was more applicable to me as a customer. So, like the lipstick example, or shoes, or laundry detergent, or like something that's a little bit more tied to my care that I'm a consumer of. I definitely, like I said, we all get our oil changed, but that's not anything exciting to me or something that I research online or that I'm passionate about. So I thought I would go into something that was more aligned with my interests and passions. But like I said, I graduated in 2009, and that was a recession. So a lot of companies weren't hiring at the time. Oil and gas was doing great. So I went down this path and grew to love it. The company takes really good care of their employees, and they hire excellent people that really allow that kind of. I have two little kids at home. So, like, the adult conversations and challenges that I face in the workplace balance out the mommy tea party side of me. So yeah, it's definitely not something that I pictured. I pictured myself going into marketing, not in this industry, but I've been very happy with it, and I can see myself retiring from here if I'm given the opportunity. It's been a really good match.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can tell you're really creative. Like your background's really cute. Your room and your little chandelier is super cute. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. Okay. Next question is ExxonMobil is a huge company in the oil industry and is affected by lots of outside factors like global politics, oil prices, environmental regulations, and more. What is it like communicating in this kind of area with so many different factors affecting your organization?
It's tough. I won't sugarcoat that. I guess this is a good time to just have it all on the recording that I'm doing this just out of the interest and goodwill of my heart. I'm Everything I say is my own personal opinion. It has nothing to do with ExxonMobil. Like, I'm not here to represent ExxonMobil by any means, I guess. So if I say something stupid, don't go back to them and get me in trouble or get them in trouble or anything. Like, this is all on me. So that said, like, I mean, we've been in the forefront of headlines this year. It's been a tough year for everybody. Our stock price has dropped dramatically. We are name dropped in quite a few presidential debates. So it's tough. I feel like I've always had a little bit of a struggle with it because even starting out, ExxonMobil was the Fortune 1 company when I got my offer to come here, which was something I was very proud of. That's also when gas was, I think, $5, $6 a gallon. So that was really hard for people like neighbors. And, I would go home with my parents and be at their holiday parties, and people would be like, oh, well, I'm sure you are doing great. Like, you don't have to move into your basement like all of our kids, but you're taking money out of all of our pockets at the pump. So that was really hard. I had to really educate myself on how oil and gas economics work and how that's not really the case, and kind of be on the defensive a little bit. My in-laws are all public servants. So my mother-in-law is a retired teacher. My father-in-law is a retired policeman. Their daughter is an ER nurse, and her husband is a firefighter. So they're like all, you know, public servants and doing great things for people. They've all profited from that. Like, everybody works for a living. But then I come in as like this big bad oil and gas corporation, and it's a little harder of a fit. But I had a good mentor at work once when I was kind of venting that out, and she made a good point, that, like, for instance, my retired in-laws are both on pension plans that come with, that's normal for the police and teacher academies. And ExxonMobil is the biggest stock contributor to their pension plans. So she was like, don't let them make you feel bad for earning a living. Everybody's out there to turn a profit at some point. And there's ways that ExxonMobil contributes rather than just by earnings and profits back in taxes and taxes and sustainability initiatives and all kinds of ways like that. So it's hard to feel a little bit on the defensive sometimes, whether it's a good year like it was when I started or it's a bad year like it is now. There's a lot of attention to it. But I think that's normal. And I think you could argue that for pretty much any big corporation or big industry, whether it's like on the IT side. I'm watching The Social Dilemma, and I always thought it would be cool to work for Facebook or Instagram, but now they're being accused of, like ruining people's minds and stuff. And big pharma gets attacked all the time. So it's just part of it. But I think that our our corporation does a lot to give back, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And business is business.
Does that in any way like change your marketing tactics or like how does that, you know?
Yeah. So I mentioned like it's hard or I'm in an industry that I didn't picture myself because I'm not a customer in this industry. And that's been a hard thing to adjust to because when you're making up marketing strategies and plans, it's easy to kind of put yourself in the customer's shoes and be like, oh, well, if we're going to run this promotion or this rebate, would that incentivize me to buy? Would that incentivize me to switch? And I have to think, Melissa, you're not the customer. Like it doesn't matter. I would be incentivized to buy if it came with free takeout delivered tonight so I don't have to cook dinner. But like the normal B2B type customer that I'm looking for has different motivations, different incentives. Um, so I feel like we have to, when Exxon Mobil approaches a customer, which all of our marketing tactics are driven to drive or are created to drive business, we have to position that relationship right. There's some larger businesses that can relate with some of the struggles that we face as well. That we can say like, hey, for example, I sell to big mining operations sometimes, and we see mines in the headlines because it can be unsafe, kind of like with people that get trapped in the quarries and things like that. We can play up our safety measures. So we're taking care of people on rigs and things like that. We can kind of say, we're attacked in the headlines sometimes for the same things that you are. And here's all the precautions that we have in place to make sure that what we're doing is right and that there would be no poor media to come out of this. Likewise, if we're selling to a really small business, like say a corner quick lube, that's just like a mom and pop oil change facility, sometimes they're like, I don't want to give my business to a big oil corporation like yours. I want to support local businesses. And that's where we can come in and say something along the lines of, you know, while we are a big business, allow us to, like, if you partner with us, you have access to those resources and you never have to worry about supply. And we have expert research that we've paid for that we can kind of share with you and train you on how to be a successful business. So there's ways that we have to position ourselves. Everything we do from the marketing organization is focused on what's best for the customer. So we do have to adapt that message of being a big corporation and how that can benefit the customer, whether they're also a really large organization or a small mom and pop type shop. There's benefits for both. So that's how we kind of tweak our message and make sure that the customer understands the benefits of working with somebody like ExxonMobil.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Okay, next question is you've been at this position for a little over 10 years. How has the industry changed since you've been in this field?
A lot. Um, I think the biggest There's two big changes. So one, I don't think anybody would be surprised to hear. Makes me sound like a dinosaur probably, but just digital. It's been 10 years. Digital, the internet has been around. Like I grew up with it. I'm not that old, but it's changed so much and it's intervened so much in the business world. So, like I mentioned, my job is kind of to get all of our sales folks on the same page and get them executing our offers. We've launched more internal apps in the past 10 years than we ever did. We never did one before I started. So the first ones have come on. So, we want our sales guys to be out in the field and we want them to be sharing our sell sheets and our documentations with customers. We want them to be writing proposals. So we got them all iPads and created these apps that were very expensive, so that they would be able to use those tools digitally and easily in the field. We've also, launched all of our websites and we invest what we used to invest in, like things like trade shows. We're now investing in search engine optimization so we can make sure that our name pops up whenever somebody Googles anything that's somewhat relatable to our products. So there's been a big shift in things like that, but everything online. Sales guys used to keep a little black book of either business cards that were stapled together or with phone numbers. Then maybe they started writing in email addresses. Now all that's going to L360 and Salesforce. If you guys use those terms at all yet, I feel like every company has some kind of digital library for customer records and management. So that's just all over the place of everything going digital. The other thing I would say is kind of like shifting to more of a services offer. So we've always been positioned on our products, like having the best products there are. We don't sell on price. Like we don't have the cheapest product out there. We have the best product out there and we have the best people out there to sell it. That's always been kind of our bread and butter. But as we see more things moving online, we realize that we have to do more than just have a good product. Anybody can add to cart online and get their product at a lower price. So we want to have a fuller package that includes a lot of services, things like subscriptions, which seems like an obvious direction when you think of things like streaming TV shows and movies. But it took a little while for things like that to really transfer into our side of the business. But we're definitely moving more that direction. Things like Uber for your oil change, all kinds of innovative ideas like that to be integrate technology and the digital aspect and integrate a service that people are willing to pay for that you can't just buy from Amazon.
Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned that you're not traveling as much right now because of COVID. What does your day-to-day schedule look like now?
Yeah, I do a lot of conference calls. Like I said, I'm kind of a messenger between sales and marketing. So I've got two teams that I work with on the marketing side. They each focus on different types of products and brands and customers. So I meet with them. Like no day is the same, but I think it's a little easier to zoom out at a week view. Like I would meet with somebody from each of those teams or those teams as a whole once a week. And then I have two sales teams that each have about 10 people on them. So I meet with each of those two teams once a week. A lot of times I have one-on-ones, especially with some of our newer sales reps, just to kind of check in on them. And then we have our distributors. So I have 5 distributors that I work with. So that's about 9 teams that I'm kind of liaisoning between. And we have just kind of at least a half hour checkpoint at least once a week, especially with COVID, since people aren't seeing each other face to face. It just kind of keeps the lines of communication open, helps see what's going well, what's not going so well. A lot of the stuff that I do is longer term project oriented. So the sales folks that I work with are like, they're turning business over like they're quick, and they send texts when they need a question, and they are out in the field, depending on the area. They're kind of released from their home offices right now. So sometimes they'll text me when they need to know the pricing of something or a claim that we have on something, and they want an answer right away. Whereas like my marketing folks, they have these projects that last 9 months. So sometimes we joke that there's never a real emergency in marketing. Although I think in y'all's communications roles, there could be, because sometimes you have to craft a message and be quick to respond to it really fast. So a lot of the stuff I do is project oriented, and I have one of those or I have a couple project teams, and we tend to meet once a week to kind of give updates. So I have a lot of these like recurring weekly meetings, and that's how I collaborate with folks. A, a lot of what we do are these projects, and a lot of the people that I work with, I haven't really gotten to this yet, but are engineers. Our company has a history of hiring people with chemical engineering degrees and mechanical engineering degrees, which kind of goes back to that history of always selling off the technology of a product. Now they're bringing on more marketing expertise, which I think is great and refreshing. But a lot of times I pair up with somebody that does have that engineering background. So together we can kind of balance each other out and create a marketing campaign together.
Awesome. Super cool. Okay. Next we have, okay, students here are all Mass Comm students and are learning different skills in writing, social media, project management, and more. What do you think are the most important skills to have in your field or your position?
I mean, communications is an obvious answer, right? That's a pretty vague or broad answer. I think when it comes to communication specifically, and in this day and age, how to have the right balance of professional yet personal communications. Sometimes people, and this can be a little bit of a like stereotype of different generations, I guess, but historically, work communications or communications that are published out in a public affairs type set, like on Twitter or whatever, can be very, very professional. Then generations have swung to be very, very casual. So I think that the people that are able to strike a message that's both professional and personal, or professional with a little bit of a sense of humor, or some, like the balanced method where you can still be catchy and still be trending, still be noticed, but also professional, is really unique and kind of hard to craft and find. So I always find that to be a good skill. Or when I think of like our communications team and our public affairs team, the ones that are able to do that always get my attention. For you guys, I think it's pretty basic, but analysis and decision making skills are also really important. And that's probably something that I didn't focus a lot on in my career or in my college experience. Because, like I said, I was more the creative side, and I was always just looking at like, really, I was looking at advertising stuff, which I learned is not marketing. And Exxon Mobil actually outsources all of that stuff to advertising agencies. So I was a little disappointed to learn that I don't get to create some of this stuff. But yeah, I feel like having analysis skills, being proficient in Excel, while it may not be the most exciting thing, and it may not even be a very fortunate reality, but the reality is that's important in all business jobs. And when you need to make a decision on, should I tweet this out or tweet that out? If you have some data on, this one got this many likes and this many shares, and last time we did something like this, it didn't. Like, I guess I'm from a very data driven company, but I think most companies are, whether they're as conservative or admitted as much as mine do. So having those skills to see statistics, identify trends in the numbers, and make a decision and stick with it, I think that's a really good skill to have that sometimes is overlooked because it doesn't come off as like shiny and creative. But I think you'd also be surprised at how many people don't have those kinds of skills and how impressive it can be if you're the one that does have that.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Okay, so I have another question. It's earlier that you mentioned that you were putting together marketing campaigns. Do you have a campaign or a project that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I have a few good examples, but I had thought about one to share with this group that I think was kind of fun and exciting and different. So, again, before COVID, imagine this, our whole organization would meet together in usually February, like the middle of the first quarter of the year, for what we called the kickoff meeting. So it'd be about 400 people, like shocker, all in one banquet room together. I don't know if we'll ever get to do that again, but there was a time that we did, and we flew everybody in from all around the country to get together, and our leaders would speak on kind of like, here's our goals for the year, here's our plan for the year. And it would be a balance again of kind of the very professional, like business oriented goals, but also motivate everybody like that. The music would play and kind of pump everybody up to have a great year. A lot of our people are home based, so it's a great team building opportunity to bring them together face to face. And that's like that was the event of my job. That was where it came together. We've got the marketing folks, and they're usually the ones on stage presenting. We've got the sales folks in the audience. They're the one, like, our job is to have them leave this meeting pumped and like ready to meet those goals that were in the PowerPoint presentation that was presented on stage. So anyways, last year, as I mentioned, like, we're kind of moving towards more of a service oriented company. So we launched a brand called Mobile Serve. And we had actually launched it 2 years prior. And it was basically just putting a brand on all of these different services that we provide. So it could be, I'm going to make up some things that would be more relevant to this audience, but like mobile serve food delivery, mobile serve haircut, like something, just putting that name in front of the service, and from a marketing perspective, having it branded. So we tried to launch that, and it did not go well. Like, nobody seemed to get it. I'm sure I've already confused a lot of you with those examples, but our sales folks who have no like, again, most of them are chemical engineers. So they kind of picked the ones that have the best interpersonal skills to be sellers, but they're like, why does it matter what the brand is? Like, I don't get what y'all are trying to do. This is so confusing. And they just wanted like a very black and white explanation of what we were doing. And the truth is, like, what we were trying to do was create a brand experience. We want a brand that has a feeling behind it. Our business case that we studied was Chick-fil-A. Like, when you think of Chick-fil-A, yeah, you think of the nuggets and the fries and the dips, but like, how many of you guys are thinking about oh, it's my pleasure. It's nice to, the service orientation that comes with Chick-fil-A. So we just could not get that message across. So last year they wanted to relaunch it at the meeting. And some of my counterparts had this idea of like, oh, we'll have this breakout and we'll do a case study and we'll like write all these paragraphs about a customer scenario, and we'll have the sales guys say which services they would present or which services they would offer and present out on. And I was just like, this is boring. Like, I was just bored by the whole situation. And I was like, nobody wants to fly to Chicago and do a case study with people that they only get to see once a year. And I feel like we've done this and it's just not getting in their heads, and it's not paperwork. Like we're talking about the feeling behind the brand. So it was really fun, but I kind of convinced them to do something totally different. Um, and we hired a band that writes jingles, like cheesy jingles that you hear on like late night TV commercials. And they came with like all their guitar and musical setup, and we helped lead a workshop where we had people really deep dive into what mobile serve was to them and what it meant to them, and try to articulate it in their own words, like not reading off the definition of a slide or from the website. Like, what does this really mean to you? And then the band took some of their words and turned it into lyrics. And then we turned the lyrics into a mobile serve jingle, like not to ever use with the customer because it was super cheesy. But I feel like that finally made these super type A engineer type people get what we were trying to say and have the experience and have the feelings behind the brand. And once they were able to do it, then they were able to like keep passing that message on to customers. So it got the enthusiasm up, it pumped everybody up, it was fun, it wasn't boring, and it really got that message across that's just not black and white and tangible like everybody wanted it to be. So I was really proud of that because I'm a people pleaser, so I mostly just liked that everybody had a good time. But I also liked that we achieved our objective and um, made a good use of everybody's time together.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that you made it like a fun thing too. It wasn't just, it was like more special because of that.
Mhm.
Um, okay, next question is, what is the most challenging aspect of your position?
The most challenging is, like I just said, I'm a people pleaser. So sometimes being in between sales and marketing has this idea of what they want and what they expect. And then sales comes back and says, like, that's just not realistic or you've missed the mark. Um, so sometimes I feel like a middleman there. I have to decide which side do I believe? Like, again, kind of looking at the data and the analytics, who's right here, and then advocate for that side. But sometimes it means that I have to tell somebody in marketing, um, you're you're wrong. Like what you read is too dated. It's not applicable, or it's a dream world and it's not reality. Or I have to tell somebody in sales like that they're wrong and you're not able to get it done, but these guys in California and North Carolina, they've been able to achieve it, so let's look at what you're doing. So I don't like to call people out on being wrong. I have to really frame that message. So that's kind of a struggle. And I think another one is being part of a big corporation. We're just kind of slow, and these days, especially in the age of the internet and everything, like we need to be quick to market. We need to react quicker. Um, and working for a company, especially as big as ours, like how I had to give my kind of disclaimer, I'm not here to represent Exxon Mobil. That's because anything we release has to be approved by legal and approved by public affairs. And, it's just kind of, I feel like if you're at a private company or a smaller company, there may not be as many roadblocks or hurdles to, maybe there are, I don't know. But that's kind of a challenge of sometimes I have like these quick, witty ideas, and it takes months for them to be executed. And by then it's kind of like old news.
Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and open the floor up for a quick little Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and either message me them or you can raise your hand on the participants, and there should be like a hand raise button. You can click and I can call on you. So yeah.
I had one student who already chatted to me. So she said, do you have any locations that you would recommend reaching out to for an internship?
I do not at this time. There's definitely always applications online. So if you just go to exxonmobil.com, you can get to the HR page and they're always accepting applications. Like I said, it hasn't been a great year, and from what I hear, there's a hiring freeze with ExxonMobil. So I don't know if that's, I'm sure there's always exceptions, but I know that our recruitment process isn't what it usually is, just because it's such a uncertain time, I guess. And I hate to say that, but it will come back around too. Like there's ups and downs. And like I said, I graduated in a rough downturn recession, and then it boomed back up again. So I wish I had like a opening that I can send out to everybody, but it's just not the case right now.
Okay, I think I had another question. What was, or what is rather, your favorite part of your position? What is the thing you most enjoy?
My favorite part is kind of being that cheerleader for our sales folks. I feel like my job, that sounds a little um, like not noteworthy or not valuable, but the corporation does see a lot of value in my job, being out in the field and driving. I get a lot of credit for driving a lot of the results. Like you would think a lot of the credit goes to the folks that are creating some of the ideas in the office. Um, but I'm the one that's out there setting goals, that's calling folks to check on them and kind of holding them accountable to those goals, that's identifying if there's a gap out there. So I always do that in the most positive way I can. Again, I don't like to call somebody out and be like, you did this wrong. I like to say, what's wrong with this? How can we fix it? And we still have, 2 months before it ends. How can we get some wins on the board? So I kind of like to be that positive influence and accountability partner for a lot of our sales folks that are, most of them are entry level positions and most of them are remote out in the field, without any other ExxonMobil contacts there. So I kind of get to be their friend and their partner. I guess that's kind of a feel good answer, but that's probably why it makes me feel good, because it's nice. That's why it's my favorite.
Awesome. Sorry, Riley, I'm not intentionally taking over. It's because of the chat settings. So chat is like only coming to me. So
Good.
the next question, what would you say is your most important communication strategy you use as that two-way communication segment between marketing and sales?
That's a good question. I think repetition, like we have kind of structured calls. I mentioned all the recurring calls that I'm on with different teams. We have calls each month with our teams, like the whole country that dials on to and we've always done that. That's not a COVID thing. That's how do we get a message across to sales folks that are remotely based around the country? So we have it with them on the second Friday of the month, and then we have it with them and we invite their distributors to join on the fourth Friday of the month. And by the time I do that and the 9 other calls each week that I mentioned, I have repeated myself so many times. But then sometimes I go to somebody and I'm like, well, remember this? And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot you said that, because they only heard it once or twice. So I read somewhere that people have to hear things 7 times, 7 different ways for it to really sink in. And I think that's true. Like I'm working with highly qualified professional grown, and one time is not enough. And even 2 times in the same way, like 2 times in an email, if it's really important, is probably not enough. If they hear it in an email and on a conference call with a big group, and then on a conference call with a small group or one-on-one, and in their L360 chatter feed, like when I have something important to say, I blast it out in all of those and hope that it sticks that way. So yeah, I would say there's never too much repetition when you're dealing with folks that are really busy in their jobs. You have to pick which message you want to repeat though, otherwise you just sound like a broken record. So pick the most important ones.
Right. And one thing I just kind of want to point out is that, a lot of our students and this that I'm seeing over here are public relations or advertising majors. And while marketing is not advertising or PR, they share some similar principles. And it sounds like a lot of your position is based on relationship building and encouraging your sales staff. And those are things that, we're learning in PR, and it's about branding, which is something that advertising folks are focused in, right? So it's an interesting kind of like mesh between those. But you're saying that those are still totally different departments within Exxon, right? Is that there's a marketing and advertising separate?
Yeah, so all of our advertising for the most part gets outsourced to agencies. But my job we kind of assign them what the scope of the project. So we say like, here's the research that we've done, here's what we're trying to achieve. And then they do a lot of the creative work behind it, whether that's artwork for a digital banner or a commercial, like in the fun, exciting stuff, things like that. And then our public affairs team, they also work with, I talked about, I'm just in the downstream, but they work for the broader Exxon Mobil Corporation, and they approve everything that we do. So anything that leaves the walls of the company, whether it is a commercial or, like a sell sheet that we post on the website that just has product claims, they're checking that to make sure that we're representing our brands correctly, that we're representing the corporation correctly, that we're not doing anything that could be misconceived as like ill intentions or, not following with the brand strategy that we want to go. So I think that's the most common thing that all of those functions have in mind is the integrity of the brand. So we all have different roles to play in maintaining that integrity and kind of the success of that brand. But that's the biggest linkage between all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think that we are coming close to our end of our time here. So I just wanted to see if you had any like last words you wanted to leave with our students or inspiration that you might want to give to them.
Just hang in there. Like, I know it's been a really weird year, and I've referenced back to how it was no COVID circumstances when I was a senior at Texas Tech. Like, I was still having the time of my life, but economically the environment wasn't the best the country's seen, and it worked out fine. None of my friends live in their parents' basements anymore. Like, they all got jobs and everybody's great. So hang in there. I hope I didn't sound like a downer with any of the oil and gas industry or just the way things are this year, because I think it's all going really well. I think it's just an unusual year. And I really do feel passionate about the role that I'm in and the career that I've chosen. And like I said, I can see myself retiring here. Like, there's a lot of challenges that kind of keep me engaged. I'm not going to stereotype anybody, but I feel like, again, I'm not trying to be a downer, but a lot of times people say, do what you love. And I mentioned that this is not where I would have picked to be. I do love it for a job, but that's what it is. But it does enable me to do what I love. Like, I love playing with puppies and drinking on the beach, you know, like I know some people have blogs about all that stuff and they get free things and are very successful, and all the power to them. But, you know, don't be ashamed of taking on a job and a career that fulfills that professional side of you and allows you to have fun on the nights and weekends and stuff, because I've been really happy with that. And I feel like when my kids grow up, if this whole like blogger, you know, all of these, like, I think when I was growing up, everybody wanted to be a professional athlete. And it's like, is that really realistic? Like, how many people actually make it to that status? So now in the IT world, there's some other influencer type dream jobs, and that's great. Like, if that really is the dream, all the power to you. But I think there's tons of other jobs in business worlds that can fulfill all of your dreams as well, and they're just as exciting, and they instill a lot of confidence in you professionally, and that does come off in your personal life as well. So find a job that really helps strike that balance, and I think you'll be happy.
Wonderful. I absolutely, especially coming out of school, your first job is not going to be your dream job 99% of the time, right? But your job allows you to learn and grow and pays your bills and can help you, you know, fund your life. Then you're in a good spot, and you have to find fulfillment outside of your jobs too. And this is one of the reasons why we try to bring in speakers from all sorts of things. So we don't just bring in 20 influencers to talk to everybody, because like you said, that's not the reality for most people. So, you know, a job is a good job, especially if you're using the skills that you went to school for. And so that is out there as well. And you can find companies all over the place that may not be like the sexiest brand, right? Like it's not Apple or Google where everyone wants to be, but it's a good, solid company, and there are things that are positive about it. So, Melissa, I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate your perspective, bringing that for students. And I think that we are going to go ahead and wrap up. So for everybody else who's attending, thank you for being here today. Don't forget that we have more sessions coming tomorrow. And if you've missed any, you can check the recordings on txstatemcweek.com. All right. Thank you, Melissa. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye.
Melissa.
Thank you.